In the fierce Holy Grail War, 7 sorcerers summon 7 heroic spirits in a desperate quest for the power of the mystical Holy Grail, which grants miracles. The fourth battle, postponed 3 times, finally unfolds. On the other hand, on a snowy day, our protagonist Kiritsugu, tormented by considering himself the cause of Irisviel von Einzbern's death, finds solace in her, who accepts her fate and acknowledges that she is the reason for his existence. Despite Kiritsugu's anguish and his reluctance to seek compassion, Irisviel expresses gratitude for what they have achieved together, freeing her from being a puppet. Reminding him of his goal to create a new world without suffering caused by the Holy Grail, Irisviel urges Kiritsugu to embrace his daughter and feel proud. In a flashback, Kirei discovers his involvement in the Holy Grail War through the command seal, revealing the importance of keeping it a secret. Despite appearing to be enemies, Kirei and Tokiomi plan to work together to ensure Tokiomi's victory. In another flash-forward, Kirei struggles to free his niece Sakura, subjected to a cruel training process involving crest worms. Although he agrees to participate in the war to liberate her, Kirei becomes a host for the worms as he fights for his survival and Sakura's. In the present, magic students at the Clock Tower in London learn about the importance of magical bloodlines and a family's strength. Waver Velvet, defying traditional beliefs, decides to participate in the Holy Grail War to prove his worth and summons his own servant. Kirei and Tokiomi discuss the mages in the war, with Kirei confirming the safety of his master and revealing Kiritsugu's surprising choice as the Einzbern master. The scene shifts to Kiritsugu and Irisviel kneeling in a church as Kiritsugu receives his relic to summon his servant. Kiritsugu investigates the other masters, especially Kirei, fearing his brutality and skills. Both question each other's motivations and desires regarding the Holy Grail. Finally, Kirei is presented in a lamentable state, weakened by the crest worms. Though he is not a designated master, Zuken Matu praises his resilience and reveals his readiness for the impending battle. On the other hand, we see Waver, excited to have a command seal, preparing to summon his servant. He deceives those he believes are his grandparents and complains about having to restart the hypnosis, revealing that they are not actually his relatives. Kiritsugu contemplates his relic, Excalibur, the legendary sword of Arthur Pendragon. He considers it merely a tool essential for winning the Holy Grail War. He emphasizes the healing capabilities of the sword and the importance of having the strongest servant. Following this, we see Rin Tosaka moving in with the Zenju family while her father, Tokiomi, shows Kirei a relic, a fossil of the first skin shed by a snake in the world. Injured and with white hair, Kirei finally meets Sakura in her room. He promises to see her again after completing his task, despite Sakura's denial of having a family. In the basement, Kirei and Zuken attempt to summon his servant with an incantation that will grant affinity with madness to enhance his abilities. Meanwhile, Waver, in a forest, uses stolen chickens to obtain the necessary blood for his summoning circle. On the other side, we see Tokiomi and Kirei and Kiritsugu and Irisviel von Einzbern in their respective circles. Kirei summons Archer Gilgamesh, Kiritsugu summons Lancer King Arthur in the form of a woman, and Waver summons Rider Alexander the Great. At this moment, everything is ready for the commencement of the intense Holy Grail War. Waver rebukes Rider for intruding into his room after stealing books from him. Intrigued by the maps he discovers, Rider plans to conquer his former territories while they travel back to Macedonia and Persia. When questioning Waver about his ambitions with the Holy Grail, Waver modestly reveals his desire to be recognized by his peers at the Tower of London. Rider, disdainful, finds him insignificant and narrow-minded. Waver, on the verge of using his command seals, restrains himself, mindful of his limit of 3 uses. Rider showcases his power with his sword, unleashing natural phenomena and revealing Zeus's chariot. Meanwhile, Kiritsugu and his daughter Irisviel gather chestnut buds in the snow, with Saber watching from the mansion. Surprised by Kiritsugu's warmth, Saber recalls how he and Irisviel reacted upon discovering her true identity as a woman. Irisviel, concerned about the relationship between Kiritsugu and Saber, discusses Kiritsugu's discomfort with imposing the destiny of a king on Saber. Later on, Saber reveals her desire to save Britain, something she was unable to accomplish in her past life. In a forest, Kiritsugu asks his daughter to wait for his return, while her mother assures her that she will always be with her. Elsewhere, a young man named Ryu attempts to summon a demon using a blood-stained pentagram. News reports detail a murder connected to this attempt, showcasing the gruesome scene. Ryunosuke, a sadistic killer, reveals his dark pastimes and indifference towards the Holy Grail. His servant, Bluebeard, is summoned and shares his enthusiasm for violence. Impressed by the brutality, Ryunosuke joins his servant to explore more ways of killing. Later that night, Kirei is conversing with his servant, Assassin, at the top of a hill, discussing Caster Bluebeard, the latest summoned servant that marks the beginning of the Holy Grail War. He orders Assassin to depart immediately and go to the Tosaka mansion to eliminate Tokiomi promptly, turning against him at the earliest opportunity. The assassin gracefully disables many of the traps outside the mansion, avoiding each activation beam until reaching the crystal power source. However, it painfully explodes in his hand as Gilgamesh threw his spear through it, pinning his hand to the top of the pillar. Gilgamesh then sends another one to his face, stating that a worm like him has no right to look at him. Tokiomi, with modesty, explains to Gilgamesh that he had him fight against Assassin to showcase his power and assist him in deciding whom to fight against first. Although Gilgamesh initially regarded this as trivial, he agreed and chose to wander in the current era, finding it intriguing yet distasteful. His goal is to discover treasures worthy of his collection, and Tokiomi assures him that the Holy Grail will satisfy his tastes. Waver shares the news with Ryder, who, relaxed and enjoying snacks, shows no concern for Assassin's death. However, he is intrigued by who defeated Assassin and becomes excited about the prospect of facing the one responsible. Ryder decides to hunt down the other servants, setting his sights on the shining golden servant that Waver mentioned, assuming that all the others are also aware of him. Meanwhile, at the Holy Church, Kirei seeks asylum and is granted it according to the rules. Despite feeling secure, he requests a guard, materializing a female assassin. He reports the presence of 4 magical entities and plans to take advantage of the distraction of the other masters so that the shadow heroic spirits can launch their attacks. On the other hand, Irisviel and Saber arrive in Japan to convince the other masters that Irisviel is Saber's master. Clad in black, Saber displays disinterest in the country and the plane, as she can ride anything mortal or divine. As they are driven through Japan, Saber yearns to meet Kiritsugu, while Irisviel wants to relish the country she has never explored before. On the other hand, Kiritsugu seeks the help of an arms dealer after the victory over Assassin. Both review the outcome of the battle and conclude that Kirei may have intentionally allowed a servant to arrive. Kiritsugu asks the arms dealer to send a familiar near the Holy Church without alerting the father. Before continuing his mission, the arms dealer encourages him and kisses him, hinting at a close connection between them. With Saber by her side, Irisviel von Einzbern gazes at the ocean, commenting on its beauty. They have spent a pleasant day together, reflecting on it together. Irisviel remarks that happiness seems to bring pain to Emiya, and Saber assumes that Irisviel would have preferred to spend the day walking with him. Saber then senses something lurking in the nearby darkness and takes it as a challenge. On the other side, Waver finds herself terrified on top of a bridge while Ryder enjoys the view, considering it an ideal spot to observe their enemies with a drink in hand, feeling exhilarated. Back near the water, Lancer finally decides to reveal himself to Saber and Irisviel, preparing for battle. Before plunging into combat, these fighters seem to exchange some friendly words as if it were a prelude to the great battle we are about to witness. Saber discovers which Lancer possesses the ability to use charm magic. The fight erupts with Kiritsugu defending against the initial strike, while Ryder and Waver observe the confrontation. The identity of Lancer's master remains unrevealed, prompting Emiya and Maya to investigate the surroundings in search of clues. Saber focuses on discovering Lancer's noble phantasm to plan her strategy, while both engage in combat without knowing each other's identities. Saber uses wind magic on her sword to conceal its features, and the battle becomes intense. Emiya identifies Lancer's master on the warehouse roof, but is caught off guard by an attack from Assassin, strategically positioned in a surprising location. In parallel, Kirei informs Tokiomi about the battle, emphasizing Saber's strength and mentioning a mysterious woman with red eyes, silver hair, and white skin who Tokiomi identifies as an Einzbern homunculus. Tokiomi orders Kirei to keep a close watch on the woman at all times. Back in the battle, Lancer and Saber praise each other's skills until Lancer's master authorizes the use of the noble phantasm. Lancer reveals his longer lance, surprising Saber. Lancer employs his ability to cut through magic, unveiling the true nature of Saber's armor as a magical barrier. In an unexpected twist, Lancer unveils another lance, another noble phantasm, severing Saber's arm and leaving her wounded on the ground. Meanwhile, Ryder is not pleased with what he's witnessing. He doesn't want Lancer to finish the fight. Instead, he hopes more servants will appear before that happens so he can witness their abilities. He would prefer to engage and defeat all of his enemies at once rather than hunting them down one by one. He desires the opportunity to cross swords with these heroes from different times, and the more he observes Lancer and Saber, the more he yearns to join the battle. Ryder cuts through the air with his sword, calling out from his chariot. Lancer is on his feet again, but he cannot move his thumb due to a cut on his arm. Irisviel attempts to heal him, but his wound does not mend as it should. Had he retained his armor, he wouldn't have been injured by the second yellow lance, which inflicts cursed wounds that cannot be healed. Saber realizes that he is of Diarmu Uaduibin, and Lancer also becomes aware of her identity. Before they are about to resume their fight, Ryder bursts onto the battlefield in his chariot, presenting himself majestically to the surprise of everyone. Ryder bursts into the confrontation between Lancer and Saber, suggesting that they surrender the Holy Grail and join him. Lancer rejects the offer, loyal to his master, and Saber feels insulted. Ryder responds boldly, mocking the master and challenging him to join the battlefield. Gilgamesh, an imposing king, makes his presence known and disdains the other servants. Irritated by Ryder's command, he reveals his noble phantasm. The situation becomes complicated when Kirei sends his dark berserker, a terrifying being under an identity spell. Kiritsugu seeks out the master of berserker, while Gilgamesh and berserker face off. Gilgamesh hurls numerous weapons, but berserker either dodges them or turns them into his own noble phantasm. Tokiomi decides to withdraw Gilgamesh using a command spell to prevent the second activation of his noble phantasm. Berserker attacks with the light pole, revealing that anything he holds becomes his weapon. Lancer intervenes to protect Saber, but his master orders him to join forces with Berserker against her. Kiritsugu plans to eliminate Lancer's master, but before the situation spirals out of control, Ryder intervenes by hurling his chariot at Berserker. Ryder then calls Lancer's master, telling him that if the fight continues, it will now be against Ryder and Saber. Lancer receives a response call. Ryder then tells Saber that she must fight Lancer first, and she knows this to be true because she needs to kill him to heal the cursed wound affecting her hand. She would be at a significant disadvantage in all their fights if she doesn't heal first. Meanwhile, Waver Velvet is exhausted from all the action. Meanwhile, Emiya laughs at the fear inflicted on the servants as Berserker enters the battle, but he coughs up blood and crest worms because Berserker goes berserk with Saber, which cannot continue if Emiya is to survive as well. He must be able to control Berserker in order to live, and then if he can do that, he feels that he will win. Back at the church, a spy informs Kirei that a mage has been found spying on the church. Finally, we see that Castor was watching the battle from a crystal ball with Ryu. Castor continues to ramble about finally finding his soulmate, claiming it to be Saber, and stating that they will be together soon. Irisviel enjoys the speed at the wheel of Kiritsugu's car on a windy cliff with Saber. Suddenly, Saber asks her to stop the car as Castor is blocking the path. Upon getting out, Castor greets Saber as his holy virgin, but she denies knowing him. He introduces himself and claims to long for the miracle that would bring them together, even jumping through time to find her Jean. Castor believes that she has forgotten her past life. Saber introduces herself and warns Castor with her sword, and he withdraws under the watchful eyes of Kirei's spies who observe the scene and decide to follow them. Elsewhere, Ryu Undersuke indulges in a macabre moment with a scalpel and blood, while Castor informs about Saber. He plans more sacrifices, starting with 11 children. The scene shifts to Kaneth reprimanding Lancer for not killing Saber. Soul Oi interrupts and criticizes Kaneth. Lancer refuses to let Saber go any further without a fight. Elsewhere, Kiritsugu pretends to be Kaneth to evacuate a building. With Maya in position, he detonates the building. However, Kaneth hasn't moved and appears protected by a magical barrier. From the church, Kotomine communicates with Maya and inquires about the man they are searching for. He then throws a dagger, cuts her hand, and disarms her. Maya defends herself, but Kotomine reveals that someone else is watching over her. One of their spies reports that they have located Castor. Meanwhile, Kotomine, Tokiomi, and Rizi Kotomine discuss Castor and his master using magic recklessly, having already killed 15 children. They deem him dangerous as he could expose the Holy Grail War, so they decide to try to convince the other masters to ally with them against Castor. Shortly after, Kirei finds Gilgamesh in his office, drinking all his wine and relaxing on his sofa. Gilgamesh talks about Tokiomi's goal of reaching the root being as boring as he is and asks Kirei what he would wish for from the Holy Grail. Kirei responds that he has none and no desires. His perspective is that doing things for his own happiness is a sin that would stain his soul. Gilgamesh responds that Kirei needs to learn what true pleasure is and also asks him to find out the motivations of the other servants. Gilgamesh disappears, and Kirei wonders if he could learn what motivates Emiya and also discover what he seeks. In the demolished hotel, rescuers discover a mysterious mercury ball that seems to possess those who touch it. One of them, under its control, orders the others to load it onto a truck. On the other hand, Rize informs the Master's relatives about the temporary suspension of the Holy Grail War to focus on eliminating Castor. The reward for defeating Castor first includes additional command spells. Rishi and Tokiomi plan to let other masters find Castor and then exploit its weakness with Archer. Back at the house where Waver Velvet is staying, Ryder receives a package from a delivery person. He ordered a t-shirt with a world map and admirable master strategist upon learning about online shopping and wanting to try it out. Ryder now wants to go out, which Waver had not allowed before because he observed that Saber could do so while dressed in modern clothing. Unfortunately, Ryder doesn't have modern pants and Waver prevents him from leaving until he puts some on. They make a deal where Waver will get him pants and let him go out if Ryder kills a servant. Emiya, Irisviel, and Saber discuss how to approach Castor, who believes Saber to be Joan of Arc. While Emiya suggests waiting, Saber wants to act swiftly to prevent further tragedies. Irisviel points out Saber's cursed wound and the existence of Lancer as additional concerns. Emiya contemplates abandoning the war and returning to his family, but Irisviel convinces him to stay for the sake of the Holy Grail and the world. However, they fear Kirei, who might be pursuing them. The action shifts to the forest where Castor, with controlled children, challenges his pursuers to a deadly game. Irisviel watches through a crystal ball as Saber plunges into the confrontation. Castor releases one child, but the battle takes a dark turn when tentacled creatures emerge, indicating that the conflict is no longer confined to the Holy Grail. Castor continues insisting that she has forgotten who she is, claiming to be merely confused. Saber breaks free from her restraints and begins the fight with him. She starts by cutting the tentacled creatures covering the battlefield. However, they immediately regenerate. Emiya tells Mayu to take Irisviel out of the mansion as it's not safe for her. Saber wonders why Castor has such unlimited mana and realizes that his noble phantasm provides it in the form of a book. He keeps forgetting who she is and the connection they once had. She continues battling against all the creatures, but they manage to ensnare her once again. Suddenly, Lancer appears, freeing Saber from her restraints and informs Castor that he will be the one to kill Saber. Castor claims ownership over Lancer. However, Lancer tells Saber not to get the wrong idea. He is only there to kill Castor because he was ordered to do so. They decide to team up and confront this common enemy. Meanwhile, Kenneth is outside the mansion and enters using some mercury-like substance he calls volume and hydrogram. He calls out to Emiya and walks forward, triggering numerous traps. However, the mercury ball following him creates an immediate shield to protect him. Emiya quickly escapes by manipulating the time in his body. He flees and hides behind a corner, but the mercury keeps searching for him. He uses Time Alter, triple stagnate to slow down his heartbeats and breaths so much that the mercury cannot detect him. Kenneth rounds the corner, and Emiya aims his weapon at him. Irisviel and Mayu venture into the forest, sensing the presence of Kirei. Both agree to protect Emiya and prevent this intruder from attacking. Although there are hints of feelings for Emiya, there are no resentments between them. Meanwhile, Emiya attacks Kenneth in the mansion. After overcoming a barrier, Emiya uses special bullets that surprisingly pierce through Kenneth's defense. Kenneth, injured, promises to improve his game as he had previously let his guard down. In the forest, Mayu attacks Kirei, who surprises her with a knife and strikes her. Irisviel uses a special ability called Shape Ist Level, transforming herself into a bird made of cords that binds Kirei. However, Kirei frees himself and advances towards Mayu, overcoming attempts to stop him. Saber and Lancer, on their part, confront Castor and his tentacle creatures. Saber uses her power to carve a path, allowing Lancer to attack Castor's noble phantasm, causing a rain of blood. Explosions occur in the mansion as Emiya and Kenneth face off. Emiya uses special bullets, but Kenneth believes he can withstand them. However, he's surprised by a new shot. Before receiving the final blow, Castor survives with a cascade of blood. Later, Lancer mentions that he also has to leave because his master is in danger, and Saber allows him to go and save his master. He expresses his gratitude to her before departing. In a flashback, a woman reveals to a young Emiya the true nature of the bullets. They contain fragments of crushed ribs, which upon entering a mage, cut through their magical circuits, rendering them incapacitated. The woman crafted 66 of these lethal bullets. In the present, Kenneth experiences a violent episode of blood vomiting. The amalgamation bursts, and scratching his body, he emits heart-wrenching screams as blood rushes to the ground. In an instant, he collapses to the floor with narrowed eyes. Emiya approaches quickly, but Lancer intervenes. He remarks that he could have easily cut down Kenneth at that moment, but his honor as a knight prevents him from doing so. Brave in his choice, he opts to grab his master before leaping out of the window. Meanwhile, Kirei employs violent methods to extract answers from Irisviel, who is a homunculus assigned to protect the Holy Grail. In a desperate act, Maya, still clinging to life, grabs onto Kirei's ankle. At that moment, an assassin appears to inform him that Lancer and Castor have left the forest and Saber is approaching. Recognizing the danger of the situation, Kirei stabs Irisviel with his 3 long daggers and then makes a hasty escape. Irisviel regains consciousness and Saber offers support by holding her face. Saber informs that Kirei has escaped, Maya is injured but will survive, and concern rests on Irisviel due to the significant loss of blood. However, an intriguing revelation emerges. There are no visible wounds. It is explained through a flashback that Excalibur's sheath possesses healing properties as long as Saber is nearby. Although Emiya instructed Saber to keep the sheath with her at all times, she was unaware of this. As soon as Saber approaches, the sheath begins to unleash its healing powers. Irisviel manages to stabilize Maya. Faced with the realization that Kirei is more dangerous than they had imagined, they commit to protecting Emiya together. In an intriguing flashback, Lancer relives the moment when his king celebrates his daughter's engagement to a man she does not want to marry. Despite believing that the king accepts his love, he discovers the lie and ends up being killed by him. Surprisingly, this episode is not a memory but a dream of Kenneth, Lancer's current master. He shares his distressing dream with Soloi, his fiancée. His bandaged head reveals, and he recalls that he has lost the ability to use magic after a mysterious attack. Soloi, straightforward and ruthless, informs him that his magical circuits have been disrupted, but his internal organs have been spared. To make matters worse, she physically and emotionally tortures him, demanding that he willingly surrender the command seals or face more pain. Meanwhile, Maya lies wounded in bed, being attended to by Irisviel. Saber urges Emiya to prioritize defeating Castor to prevent further innocent deaths. However, Emiya heads to finish off Lancer's master, who still believes to be Kenneth, defying Saber's priorities. Back in the torture scene, Soloi manipulates Lancer into swearing loyalty to her, promising that the Holy Grail will be the key to healing Kenneth. Lancer, motivated by the prospect of saving his master, accepts the deal. Elsewhere, Ryder and Waver make their entrance, enjoying a meal with the girl's grandparents. Irritated by Ryder's request to dematerialize, she learns that Ryder has acquired something even more valuable: pants. Using alchemy, Waver traces the magical trail left by a mage in the water, discovering their location and recalling a relevant sewer hole. Ryder praises Waver's ability to discover Castor's lair through a simple yet effective technique. Expressing pride in his straightforward approach rather than complicated strategies, Ryder and Waver decide to venture into the tunnel. As they venture deeper, they encounter more creepy tentacle creatures. Once inside, Ryder warns Waver that it might be better not to look, but he defies the warning. Waver creates magical light to illuminate the lair, revealing a floor drenched in blood and a disturbing shoe. The shocking scene causes Waver to vomit, while Ryder emphasizes the gravity of the situation. Suddenly, they are attacked by assassins who are lurking in the lair, confirming the survival of the assassin. Ryder, with his imposing presence, springs into action to protect Waver. Although they manage to confront some assassins, he warns about the uncertainty of their numbers. Despite the possibility of finding clues in the lair, they decide to abandon it as it provides too many advantages to an assassin. They opt to set the lair on fire and majestically ride out of a sea of flames in Ryder's chariot. The disturbing shoe is consumed by the fire, leading Ryder to anticipate that Castor will be forced out into the open, considering it a strategic victory. The scene begins with a flashback of Rin attempting to concentrate her mana on a crystal that she accidentally shatters. In the present at school, Rin is protecting her friend Koton from being harassed by other boys. The scene recalls her father Tokiomi teaching her that she must focus her mana or it will rebound and not only harm her, but also those around her. He emphasizes the importance of the Tosaka family's essence, using their mana with composure and elegance. Back at school, her friend thanks her for helping. Then we return to the father-daughter duel flashback, where Tokiomi teaches her to shake the crystal into a horse. Another flashback reveals that the Tosaka family had to leave the city of Fuyuki due to the increasing danger. Although Rin is not happy about it, she acknowledges the necessity to learn more. After this, she discovers a magical book with black handprints and is almost engulfed by it, but her father saves her. Tokiomi gives her a magical compass to identify objects imbued with mana. Back in the present, Rin notices strange events at school, such as disappearances and canceled classes. Upon learning about a classmate's death, she decides to return to Fuyuki. Upon arrival, her compass reveals traces of mana everywhere. With the concern of finding Koton, she follows the compass and discovers Ryu, who seems to be mentally controlling children. Taking a risk, she traces it to a closed bar where her compass flickers and spins. Descending the stairs, she finds Koton on the floor, evidently affected by something unknown. Facing the controlled Koton and other children in the bar, Rin observes how Ryu manipulates them with his bracelet. She bravely resists, throwing objects at him, but realizes that the bracelet is the key. On the verge of being controlled, she remembers she can destroy objects with enough mana. Concentrating her energy on the compass pendant around her neck, she overloads it and shatters Ryu's bracelet. This frees the children, and Rin urges them to escape, but soon the police arrive at the scene. After this, her compass reacts strangely, revealing a supernatural presence. A tentacle creature falls to the ground, followed by flying crest worms. Korea appears, protecting Rin. Meanwhile, her worried mother drives to Fuyuki, surprised that Rin went there, and finds her daughter resting on a bench in the park. Kiriya emerges from the shadows and explains that it is the magic of the Matu family. He also elaborates on how he is sacrificing himself for the possibility of bringing Sakura and everyone together in the same park. Rin wakes up, apologizing to her mother and shedding tears for her decision to go to Fuyuki. Assassin observes everything and communicates it to his master, urging him to follow the trail of Berserker's master, Kiriya. Irisviel, as she wanders through the damaged mansion, weakens upon realizing that Ryder is approaching. She leans against a wall, and when Saber and she encounter Ryder at the entrance, she suggests not fighting but sharing a drink, and then produces a large barrel. Seated in the courtyard, they converse about the Grail, with Ryder expressing disagreement regarding the necessity of the war. Gilgamesh appears, invited by Ryder, and joins the gathering. After an exchange of drinks, Gilgamesh proclaims his ownership over everything, including the Grail. Saber questions Ryder's reasons for seeking the Grail, revealing her own desire to be reborn and change the fate of Britain. He also criticizes Ryder's view of the role of a king, arguing that he should not be a selfish tyrant. Ryder defends the idea that a king must live in extremes so that commoners admire him. In a flashback, we see Saber on a defeated battlefield, while Ryder dismisses her as a knave girl. The discussion is interrupted by the arrival of assassins, heroic spirits with multiple personalities. Ryder offers to talk and drink with them, but they respond by attacking him with a dagger. Ryder uses a special power, a reality marble, to transport everyone to a desert. He explains that this ability projects a vision of his mind into the real world. Then Ryder's massive army approaches, their souls return to the world as heroic spirits, still swearing allegiance to Ryder. In the desert, Ryder's imposing army, Ioniwe Heteron, composed of the souls of his loyal followers, manifests. The assassins are overwhelmed and defeated in an overwhelming battle. Upon returning to the courtyard, Ryder, seemingly indifferent, continues drinking and bids farewell to Saber, deeming her a little girl. After Ryder's departure, Gilgamesh offers words of encouragement to Saber, urging her to pursue her dream. However, doubts linger in Saber's heart regarding her identity and the path to follow. Kirei and Tokiomi discuss the defeat of Assassin and the powerful noble phantasm of Ryder. Tosaka, relying on Assassin's information, decides that it is time to take action with Gilgamesh against Ryder. On the other hand, Kiritsugu is in a hotel after the Battle of the Assassins. While eating, he reviews information about Kiriya and decides to postpone his intervention in that conflict for the time being. Emiya also contemplates the situation of Lancer and the uncertainty about Castor's location. Elsewhere, Kirei and Gilgamesh discuss Gilgamesh's interest in Kirei rather than the Holy Grail. Kirei explains the details of the command spells and his role in the Holy Grail War. Although Kirei is hesitant about receiving more command spells, he trusts that Tosaka has formulated a strategy to defeat the other masters and servants. Meanwhile, Saber drives Irisviel's car to their new base. The location, a traditional Japanese building in a rural village, appears weathered. Irisviel notices a rusty warehouse in the backyard that Maya hands over to Saber as part of the base. Irisviel criticizes the choice of the location, mentioning that the open space will disperse too much mana. Despite her reservations, Maya has declared the warehouse as a secure magic workshop, and Irisviel begins organizing Saber for magical preparations. Saber asks Irisviel why she's avoided touching anything throughout the day. Irisviel apologizes and admits that something is indeed wrong. She takes Saber's hand and squeezes it with all her strength, but it feels almost like nothing. Irisviel is very weak. Simply getting dressed in the morning was brutal. She stopped her sense of touch because it makes her feel unwell. Being able to do this is an advantage as a homunculus. Irisviel tells Saber that it's like a structural flaw originating from the creation of her body. Since she's not a normal human, she can't go to a doctor. From now on, she will need much more help from Saber. She believes that resting within a magic circle properly connected to ley lines, her condition could improve. Later, Kirei discusses with Gilgamesh about Saber's master, considering him a mere mercenary hired by the Einzberns. Gilgamesh views the master as a half-breed with pathetic motives for seeking the Holy Grail. The conversation unveils Gilgamesh's interest in Kiriya and his contemplation of the true reason behind Kiriya's actions. Gilgamesh, after humiliating Kirei, notices a command seal on his hand even though there are no available servants. Gilgamesh tells him to respond to the Holy Grail's call since it seems to have deemed him worthy. He also says that there is no doubt now that he truly has a wish the Grail would grant. Gilgamesh believes it's something buried deep within his heart of which he is not yet aware. If he wants to obtain the Holy Grail, his wish will be revealed to him. but first he must destroy others' chances of fulfilling their wishes and turn his master into his enemy. Gilgamesh tells him that he will have to start by stealing a servant from another master. We see Ryder contemplating the ocean alongside his troops, and then Waver waking up to the sound of his snoring. Subsequently, these two decide to take a stroll, taking advantage of the sunny day as Waver believes it was necessary to go out and get some fresh air. In the ruins of his lair, Ryu confronts the destruction caused by Castor and seeks solace. Castor emphasizes the beauty of his actions, asserting that only a few understand his art, while others seek to destroy it. Ryu reflects on the possibility of divine intervention, but Castor challenges this idea, maintaining that God does not punish humans. Rather, they inflict punishment upon each other. Ryu expresses his belief in the existence of God due to the complexity of the world, comparing it to an author who loves his work and human ideals. Castor praises this creed and proclaims that blasphemy and praise are forms of worship, expressing his desire to perform even greater feats to delight his celestial author. Meanwhile, Waver is in a library and picks up a book about Alexander the Great. It is revealed that the initial scene was a dream of Waver's, and Ryder left the governance of his territory to pursue his desire to see the ocean. Ryder and Waver discuss video games and strategy, revealing a connection beyond the servant and master relationship. Castor, standing in a river, readies his noble phantasm while Ryu waits eagerly. On the other side of the city, Waver and Ryder return home, and Waver expresses that he cannot take pride in winning the Holy Grail with such a powerful servant. Ryder tells him that his insecurity is typical of a military leader and reveals that he has never seen the ocean, which is his ultimate destination. Suddenly, they feel a presence in the river. As for Saber and Irisviel, well, they are seen speeding towards the river, where they find Castor standing with his noble phantasm unleashed, performing some kind of incredible spell. Castor notices them and bows, welcoming his holy maiden. Suddenly, a massive creature emerges from the water, enveloping Castor as he continues to speak of his wrath. Ryder also appears in his chariot, requesting a truce for tonight to confront Castor. Lancer agrees as well. Saber also agrees to fight alongside them, and they quickly begin discussing a strategy. They realize they must destroy Castor before he reaches land, but Castor is within the creature. Lancer arrives and suggests forcing Castor out of the creature. If they can expose his noble phantasm, his god Durg can break the spell with a single strike. Ryder moves forward and launches the first attack. Saber follows shortly after, running through the water and leaping from it to deliver a swift strike. In an increasingly chaotic situation, military planes approach the River Mayan, where rumors circulate about the presence of a monster. Pilots question whether the creature is real and contemplate the possibility of being the first to confront it and potentially die, following the logic of monster movies. Meanwhile, Saber struggles to harm the creature, which displays a remarkable regenerative ability. Ryder arrives in their chariot to attempt to inflict damage, but the creature continues to heal itself. Amidst the chaos, Ryu praises Castor for the creation of the creature. The scene shifts to Kirei Kotomine conversing with his father, Kirei Kotomine, the supervisor of the Holy Grail War. Both of them acknowledge that the activity at the River Mayan could expose the Holy Grail and decide to seek assistance from the Mage Association. Kirei also plans to work on covering up the events. Meanwhile, Saber persists in her efforts to defeat the creature, while Gilgamesh observes from his throne in the sky, criticizing the other servants for their inability to overcome it. Tokiomi, also present in the scene, decides to request Gilgamesh to eliminate the creature. Despite Gilgamesh's attempts, the creature continues to regenerate, and the King of Heroes displays his displeasure. In parallel, military planes continue to fly over the area, puzzled by the presence of Gilgamesh's flying vehicle. One of the planes falls victim to the creature's tentacles and is consumed. Berserker makes his entrance, utilizing his noble phantasm to incorporate a fighter jet into his arsenal. The focus shifts to Tokiomi, who encounters Kiriya Matu. The confrontation reveals past tensions as Kiriya questions Tokiomi's decision to entrust his daughter Sakura to the Matu family. Tokiomi justifies the choice as a measure to ensure that at least one of his daughters inherits the Tosaka family's magic secrets. Feeling rejected, Kiriya sees himself as a bastard in his efforts to please his descendants. The tension escalates as Kiriya, anxious about Tokiomi and Berserker's pursuit of Gilgamesh, begins to cough up blood. The crest worms, symbols of his connection to the Matu family, creep towards him as he declares his determination not to forgive the mages, swearing to kill them, including Zuken and Tokiomi. In the shadows, Kirei Kotomine observes the unfolding tragedy. The crest worms sprout wings, and Kiriya directs them towards Kirei in an act of desperation. Meanwhile, Ryu cheers on Castor from the shore, but the creature created by the latter remains impervious to the efforts of Saber and Ryder. The onlookers are struck with horror as Ryu is suddenly hit by a gunshot in the stomach. Confused, he discovers blood on his hands and admires his beauty before receiving another shot to the head, causing his death and the disappearance of his command seal. Castor laments the loss of his accomplice and vows to give him an unparalleled gift in the afterlife. Kiritsugu and Emiya, observing the situation, comprehend the threat posed by Castor's creature. After shooting Ryu, Kiritsugu insists on the need to deal with the creature before proceeding with their next objective. They recognize that if the creature reaches land, it could regenerate indefinitely. The only solution is to destroy every particle of its flesh, a task that requires an anti-fortress noble phantasm. The servants are also aware of this necessity and understand that conventional attacks won't be sufficient. Saber possesses the potential for such an attack, but her left arm, damaged by Lancer, hinders its use. Saber stands before the imposing creature of Castor, visibly bewildered about how to approach the situation. Meanwhile, Rider and Berserker chase after Gilgamesh in a frantic pursuit. Kirei unleashes flying crest warns towards Tokiomi Tosaka, who skillfully defends himself with a magical barrier, while Kirei Kotomine observes from the shadows. Faced with uncertainty, Rider advises Saber to step back, devising a plan that involves using his reality marble to gain valuable time. Meanwhile, Archer and Berserker continue their epic confrontation in the skies, attracting the attention of more spectators. The confrontation between Tokiomi and Kirei takes a dark turn for the latter, who is severely injured. Tokiomi unleashes a powerful attack enveloped in flames, leading to Kirei's downfall. Lancer, Saber, Irisviel, and Waver devise a plan of attack for when Rider can no longer sustain the creature in his reality marble. Irisviel receives a call from Kiritsugu, while Waver provides information about the plan to release the creature. Lancer, recovered from his injuries, decides to confront Castor. With her restored hand, Saber summons Excalibur and runs on water, pursued by Berserker. Archer chases after Saber, but an unknown force from the aircraft engulfs him in flames. Meanwhile, Kirei finds Kirei on the brink of death, but Archer's words lead him to decide to heal him instead of eliminating him. In another scene, Kiritsugu is in an inflatable motorboat on the water. Waver contacts Rider, delivering a message about the light signal. Lancer materializes over Berserker to prevent him from attacking Saber, stabbing the jet with his anti-magic lance, causing an explosion. However, Berserker manages to detach a turret before the impact. He gets ready to aim at Saber, but Archer eliminates him before he can seize the opportunity. Kiritsugu executes his signature shot while Waver informs Rider's messenger of the location. The messenger confirms the information and disappears to relay it to Rider. In a matter of seconds, Castor's creature reappears and Saber unleashes her anti-fortress noble phantasm, drawing the surrounding light into a beautiful golden form with a cry of Excalibur. Archer watches in awe as the creature splits and Castor is engulfed by a bright light that consumes him. At that moment, Castor has a vision of someone resembling Saber, but it's actually Jean. She smiles at him and extends her hand, a gesture he accepts amidst his confusion. Archer, on his part, falls in love with Saber. Rider, on the other hand, feels more compassion for her than awe for her abilities, bearing the weight of his followers and living tormented by his ideals, refraining from allowing himself to fall in love or fully enjoy life. In a joint decision, Rider and Archer choose not to confront each other at that moment. Rider is weakened from the recent battle with Castor, and Archer wishes to face him with all his strength in a fair duel. Kirei Kotomine, the priest of the church and overseer of the Holy Grail, meets with Kaneth to discuss the reward for Castor's defeat, additional command seals. However, the meeting takes an unexpected turn when Sophia, planning to acquire the second seal, is intercepted by Emiya, who cuts her arm. Although Sophia shows no signs of disturbance, she proceeds to destroy the damaged seals. In another scene, Rizzy and Kaneth debate whether the latter should become a master at that moment. Despite Kaneth's defense, Rizzy agrees and grants him an additional seal, but to everyone's surprise, as Rizzy walks away, Kaneth shoots him. Lancer, witnessing the confrontation between Sophia and Kaneth, is reprimanded by the latter. Later, Lancer informs Saber about Sophia's disappearance and challenges her to a duel that night. Saber accepts, and during the battle, Lancer reveals that he fights without his left hand as a sign of respect for his sword. Though his attacks are less powerful, Saber acknowledges that this approach preserves the dignity of the blade. Meanwhile, Kaneth, troubled by Sophia's disappearance, is startled by a gunshot near his wheelchair. Kiritsugu Emiya appears and offers Kaneth a contract with a magical scroll called the Self-Case Scroll, which ensures the protection of Kaneth and Sophia as long as Emiya uses his seal to command Lancer to commit suicide. Desperate, Kaneth agrees and issues the order, leading Lancer to take his own life. Surprisingly, on the battlefield, Lancer impales himself with his lance while cursing Saber and Emiya. His eyes take on a demonic hue before he disappears, warning of Diremwood's wrath in his final breath. The tragedy continues as Maya, from a distance, shoots through the chests of Sophia and Kenneth, who was holding her in his arms in his wheelchair. Emiya had deceived Kenneth into believing he was safe from death, when in reality, Maya planned to kill him anyway. Both fall to the ground, and in desperation, Kenneth calls on Emiya to finish him. Saber approaches and executes him with her sword, expressing her displeasure at seeing Emiya for the villain he truly is. She reproaches herself for having thought they shared a common goal and demands that Emiya reveal his true wish and explain himself. However, Emiya is reluctant to share his motivations with Saber and only responds to Irisviel. He sees her as an assassin but acknowledges that she can take pride in things like honor and glory. Emiya categorizes his own methods of killing as illusions that have led many to their deaths. Although Saber argues that without ideals, every war would be a hell on earth, Emiya maintains that war itself is already a hell. He views Saber's actions as inherently evil as his own. Emiya declares that he will obtain the Holy Grail to save the world, even if it means taking on all the sins of the world and getting his hands dirty with wicked acts. As soon as Kiritsugu leaves the scene, Irisviel falls forward due to her weakness. Kirei Kotomine enters the church solemnly, where he encounters the lifeless corpse of his father, Kirei Kotomine, the overseer of the fierce Holy Grail War. Upon conveying the tragic news to Tokiomi, he reacts with fury. Meanwhile, in her magic circle, Saber recovers from her injuries while Maya joins Irisviel to deliberate on Tosaka's alliance proposal. In another corner, Tosaka receives a visit from her father, Tokiomi, who entrusts her with the crucial task of securing the Holy Grail as part of her duty as a mage of the influential Tosaka family. He then presents Rin with an ancient book as a gift. Later, Saber, Irisviel, and others gather with Tosaka to discuss a conditional truce amidst the relentless war. Irisviel, worn down by the situation, puts forth two conditions for the truce: gaining information about Ryder and his master, and the removal of Kirei Kotomine from the conflict. Surprisingly, Tosaka agrees to both conditions. Following this, Saber rides a motorcycle gifted by Kiritsugu and is visibly excited. Shortly after, Irisviel reveals her true nature to Maya as a kind of disguise and the imminent transformation she will undergo. Despite this, Maya promises to protect her until the end, establishing an unbreakable bond of loyalty. Back at the church, Tokiomi Tosaka is disturbed to discover that Kirei Kotomine has hidden his past connection to the Einzbern family. Tension escalates and Kirei informs Tosaka that he must withdraw from the Holy Grail War. As Kirei packs his belongings, his attention is drawn to a photograph of Kiritsugu Emiya, sparking a deep interest in the mysterious participant. Ryder bursts into Kirei's office, casting doubt in Kiritsugu's mind about abandoning the war without resolving his own mysteries. Ryder reveals that despite Kirei's internal struggle, the Holy Grail still calls to him. A phone call discloses the whereabouts of the Einzbern family, leading Kirei to decide to stay in the conflict. Kirei reveals the command seals on his arm, a gift from his late father. Archer, impressed by the revelation, decides to shift his loyalty from Tokiomi to Kirei, thus solidifying a new master-servant pact. The farewell between Tokiomi and Kirei takes a sinister turn when, in an act of trust, Tokiomi entrusts Kirei with the education of Rin and the protection of his legacy. However, Kirei stabs Tokiomi in the back with an Azoth dagger, revealing the brutality hidden beneath his facade. With Tokiomi's death, Archer materializes, formalizing his pact with Kirei. Archer guarantees the Holy Grail, while Kirei names him as his master. We can see Kiritsugu in his childhood enjoying time with friends on the beach. An older friend, Shirley, picks him up in her van, calling him Carrie. She shares a local legend about a girl cursed to become a crab for stealing offerings. Shirley warns about the nearby shrine and its potential curse. We see his father, who has successfully used magic to prevent 100 flowers from wilting by altering the flow of time. They won't grow anymore, but they will never die. Shirley also created her first successful specimen by learning through imitation while assisting Kiritsugu's father. Shortly after, Shirley argues with her father, Priest Simon, who asks her not to return to that house. Kiritsugu, observing this discussion, thinks that his father should spend more time with villagers. Later, Shirley and Kiritsugu discuss the animosity of Father Simon and the villagers towards Kiritsugu's father. Then she shows her friend a protective dagger that her father insisted she carry at all times. Shirley is not afraid of magic and hopes that her father's work will benefit humanity. At night, the children observe Shirley's plant withering, and she invites Kiritsugu to walk along a river, reflecting on their futures. Kiritsugu reveals his secret about the future use of magic, and Shirley embraces him, promising to stay by his side. The next day, his father wakes him up, and Kiritsugu discovers that Shirley didn't go to her workshop. He is warned not to go out, but worried, he heads to the village. However, the boy ignores the warning, and upon going out, he discovers a vial from his father's experiment, bloody chickens, and Shirley with red eyes eating a chicken. Shirley begs Kiritsugu to kill her before she loses control. Desperate, she bites her wrists, and Kiritsugu witnesses the tragedy unfold. The scene continues after the tragedy, with Kiritsugu leading Father Simon to the scene of the incident. Later, we see Kiritsugu in the church, tormented by memories of Shirley. Father Simon leaves to inform the village, but Kiritsugu is attacked by individuals with red eyes. He hears another person enter the church and locks the door, but the individual pounds on the door, knowing he's inside. Suddenly, a man in a black hooded cloak with a cross necklace stabs the person trying to enter and steps through the door. Kiritsugu escapes through the window and discovers that the village is being invaded by these creatures. The woman who saved him explains that the dead apostles drink the blood of people, turning them into more of their kind. She reveals the existence of two groups, the executors of the Holy Church and the Mages Association, both attempting to eliminate the threat, though with different methods. The woman reveals that the Mages Association burned down the village to cover up the truth. Learning that Shirley was transformed by his father, Kiritsugu is deeply affected by the information. The woman, a vendor dealing with the Mages Association, is searching for a mage responsible for sealing in the medium that initiated the transformation of the dead apostles. Kiritsugu, immersed in thoughts about Shirley and his father, becomes a key player in this quest. On the other hand, Kiritsugu's father is seen burning his research, revealing that the Emiya family seeks eternity to access the root. Kiritsugu, with Shirley's dagger, stabs his father when he mentions continuing the research. He then finishes him off with a firearm, all the while recalling pleasant images of Shirley. After this, along with the woman, Kiritsugu leaves the island on a motorboat, leaving behind the fire-consuming Shirley's withered plant. We can see Kiritsugu in his adolescence, resting in an abandoned room with bandages and intravenous bags. A woman, Natalia Kaminsky, reveals to him that his pain as a mage is lifelong due to his crest. She explains that she has created bullets with a unique mystic code, a result of crushing part of her ribs. These bullets, a total of 66, can cut and connect magical circuits, permanently destroying them. She advises him to use them wisely. In a later scene, Kiritsugu and Natalia pursue a man through dark streets and deceive him to kill him. Later, Kiritsugu wakes up in his adolescence, narrating how he spent years hunting under Natalia's tutelage. He becomes a freelance professional, getting involved in the conflict between the Mages Association and the Holy Church. Despite his desire to accompany Natalia, she rejects him, claiming to have witnessed similar tragedies worldwide. Kiritsugu questions the utility of his actions, as despite killing his father to prevent tragedies, he continues to witness the deaths of many people. Natalia suggests the elimination of all mages to prevent future tragedies, but Kiritsugu considers this idea impractical. In a flashback, she advises him to prioritize his own life and survive by any means, emphasizing that sacrificing oneself for others does not help. Kiritsugu, though aware of his limitations, aspires to save as many people as possible. At another moment, Kiritsugu and Natalia prepare to strike against Odd Vorak, a mage who uses familiar bees to turn people into demons. Despite the substantial reward offered by the Mages Association, Kiritsugu questions the morality of their actions. Natalia reveals that Odd Vorak brings destruction in his wake, and she has lost entire cities for not being able to capture him earlier. As Kiritsugu picks up the habit of smoking, Natalia warns him about the dangers of tobacco. Later, he is seen smoking alone in his bed to help him relax. The hunt begins with Natalia at the airport. She discovers that Odd Vorak will be on a flight from Paris to New York, carrying his bees as checked baggage. Kiritsugu must locate and eliminate an ally in New York. In a cabin, Natalia uses a magical circle to kill Vorak on the plane, while Kiritsugu shoots his ally from another building. Natalia, in the cargo compartment, gazes the bees but discovers that they have all died. She burns the bees and asks Kiritsugu to remove the corpse from the plane. However, a flight attendant turned demon emerges, unleashing chaos on board. Kiritsugu, arming himself, becomes aware of the situation. Natalia pretends that everything is under control, but the plane is filled with demons. While Kiritsugu obtains a weapon, Natalia informs him that landing the plane is her main concern. Kiritsugu, on a speedboat, assures that he has a solution. They recall their past together, where Kiritsugu saw Natalia as his mother, and she expresses guilt for not providing him with a different life. Kiritsugu confesses that he considers her his true family and was happy not to be alone. After this poignant farewell, he launches a missile towards the plane, destroying it. From the water, Kiritsugu reflects on her sacrifice to save others. He believes he should have done the same with Shirley, regretting that he could have saved many lives in that village. Unfortunately, he cannot help but feel so much anguish after losing so many people he cared about. Kiritsugu enters the warehouse where Irisviel is, and she greets him surprisedly with a tender smile. The girl is very happy to see our hero. From her chest, she produces an artifact, which she calls Avalon, and it will be helpful for the final battle. She also thanks him for all the years they lived together. After some affectionate words, they bid farewell. Saber is driving a car, keeping a low profile. Apparently, she doesn't sense the presence of a servant. Meanwhile, Kiritsugu pulls out a sniper rifle and aims at some crows in the area. He senses that something is not right. Waver is in an apparent forest enjoying a picnic, while a shrill voice bothers him, but he continues eating. Ryder talks to him about the Holy Grail and its existence. This voice also explains that it wants to confront Saber to finally defeat her. Waver listens for a while, but he falls asleep. Kirei is now in a kind of dream naked. In front of him is a man in heavy armor, who only gestures hurtful words about him. In a blink, he begins to strangle him mercilessly, and after his helmet cracks, a flaming skull emerges. He wakes up immediately, still chained, and now the worms feed on his wounds. A mocking old man approaches him. After hitting him with the staff in the throat, a disgusting worm enters his mouth, causing his body to change. While Maya has a conversation with Irisviel, she asks her why she helps Kiritsugu, and she replies that she has no memories and he gave her the name. Her only childhood memory was poverty and war. She mentions being forced to carry a weapon and be used for battle. Kiritsugu saved her from that life, and that's why she does everything he asks. Our hero silently heads towards one of the rooms and comes across the bloody floor. On the table, he sees 2 teacups, so he will continue inspecting the place. Irisviel explains that she will always do her best to help her husband, as this is how they will win the Fourth Holy Grail War. If they both fail, Ilya will be the next one harmed. After investigating, the young man discovers that the murdered person was Tokiomi Tosaka. Unexpectedly, someone tries to force their way in where they are, creating a great commotion. When Kiritsugu orders Saber to head to the warehouse, there's only the injured Maya on the floor, and she tells him to hurry because Ryder kidnapped Irisviel. She watches the enemy move away in the distance and goes after him on her motorcycle. Our hero approaches his ally, who is in very bad shape, and begins to cry, but she stops him, as it is not the time for a break. Maya remains silent, and he holds her hand without saying anything. Saber speeds away to follow the kidnapper's trail. She tries to dodge all the cars in her way, even trucks coming in her direction. She lost sight of him, but she can feel his trail. Ryder and Waver are racing at full speed, and the enemy treats this pursuit like a race, accelerating even more. She notices that the motorcycle is reaching its limit, and she's quite close to Ryder, so she uses her powers to enhance her vehicle, determinedly saying invisible air. His ally is concerned, but the enemy doesn't play by the rules and obstructs Saber's path, who must now quickly dodge dozens of debris. When everything indicates that he has succeeded, Saber manages to catch up with him. After clashing swords, she realizes something troubling. Irisviel is not with them, so her whereabouts will continue to persist. Now Kiritsugu has a key witness captive, who may know where his wife is. He also asked about Kirei's whereabouts, but when he receives an answer he doesn't like, he shoots him in the leg. Now he starts talking. Kirei meets Kirei and asks if it was necessary to use 2 command seals for the occasion, and the other replies not to worry. He returns his power. A disciple momentarily turns into a berserker, but his master orders him to disappear, dropping Irisviel to the ground. Now she's the vessel for the Holy Grail. Before parting ways, Kirei tells him to go to the church at midnight to see Tokiomi Tosaka. Ryder and Saber face each other, and instead of attacking, the enemy tries to create a strategy. Waver inside him thinks that his ally doesn't care about the fate of his enemies and understands the origin of his nickname, King of Conquerors. When this villain decides to attack first, Saber uses her most powerful resource, the Excalibur attack. Despite the massive explosion, both manage to survive. Not sensing any enemy presence, Saber decides to move away to avoid wasting time. Now Ryder and Waver must walk back on foot. While on the journey, Kirei reflects on the challenging moments he experienced before reaching the church. Convinced that he has come across Tokiomi, he is met with a lifeless body. Simultaneously, this young girl emerges, observing the misunderstanding unfold. A heated argument ensues between them, plunging the young man into a state of panic. Overwhelmed, he loses control, gripping her so tightly that it results in her lifeless form. Witnessing the aftermath of his actions, he breaks into screams and retreats as Kirei and Gilgamesh observe the scene from the balcony, savoring a sip of wine. When Waver returns home, he encounters Glenn on the roof and invites him to join. Despite not being in the mood, he agrees nonetheless. The young man ascends with a lantern, and the amiable old man offers him something warm to drink. He shares that it has always been his dream to gaze at the stars with his grandson. He confesses to Waver that he has realized he is not his grandson but still values him, knowing he harbors no ill intentions towards them and makes his wife happy. The old man wishes to spend more time with him, but the young man cannot promise that, as he may not return alive from his mission. Kiritsugu reflects inwardly, wearing a tired expression and a weary face. He laments Maya's death as she could have been monitoring the city now. Instead, he must wield his weapon and press forward. Saber approaches and apologizes for not being able to find his wife after searching all night. With a somber look, she suggests that if there is an emergency, he should summon her. Kirei wakes up Irisviel, who is now on the floor. He informs her that the Holy Grail War is nearing its end, and he is the one who will emerge victorious. She disagrees, stating that her husband is far superior to him. The villain loses patience and, with one hand, tightens his grip around her neck, demanding to know what makes our hero special. Soon, he comes to his senses and releases her. He questions why Kiritsugu seeks the Holy Grail, and she tells him it's to save all humans and end the conflict caused by war. He doesn't understand these reasons, emphasizing the vast difference between them. Once again, the enemy strangles her, this time until her death. The light of the seal goes out, and the villain walks away with an evil smile. Waver wakes up and sees Ryder reading a book by the window. Outside, they both observe mana flashes in the air and go to the corridor to investigate. The young man deciphers that the signal means complete and success, and could signify the end of the Holy Grail War, although it could also imply a challenge. Ryder believes that tonight will determine the final battle, getting excited and summoning his course. Waver won't go with him. Instead, he orders him to fight until victory is achieved. As a second order, he demands that Ryder win the Holy Grail and finally become the conqueror of the world. Thus, he uses up all of his command seals, ceasing to be his master. Nevertheless, Ryder puts him on his course because he wants him to witness the end of the fight and considers him a friend, bringing tears to the young man's eyes. Riding off, they both depart from the site. While meditating, Kiritsugu concludes that the place he is heading to is merely a trap to gather all the masters, with the real plan being to kill our hero. Gilgamesh notices bitterness on his companion's face, and after walking over to him, they begin to review the plan. Gilgamesh presents something important. He cannot guarantee the safety of the Holy Grail. Kirei responds that it would be in the worst-case scenario and prefers to leave it to fate. The other assumes that he has now found a reason to fight. The villain departs, but before walking away, he suggests that if he sees Saber coming, he should use Berserker to confront her. In a castle located in a cold place, a young woman stands before a peculiar sculpture, witnessing this sad scene, then closing her tear-filled eyes. Our hero descends the stairs wearing a desolate yet determined expression. On the other side of the city, Kirei maintains the same face. Ryder and Waver are in a carriage on a road when the young man sees a strange light on the horizon, which transforms into Gilgamesh. The former servant asks the young man if he's afraid, and he truthfully responds yes. Saber inspects the area with her motorcycle and suddenly has to dodge a large shot that destroys her vehicle. The adversaries gather for the battle, but before proceeding, they both take wine and reflect on the impending fight. Unexpectedly, Ryder offers an alliance to conquer the world, but Gilgamesh laughs off this proposition. The former wishes for a good fight and expresses respect for his opponent. Gilgamesh agrees, and both throw their cups into the air. Ryder calls upon his commanders, and a bright white light illuminates everything, transporting us to the barren desert. He signals the attack, and all of his allies advance at high speed, while Gilgamesh observes the scene motionless. Saber continues to endure shots from the enemy, and everything around her explodes. With great skill, she confronts the enemy, although she must keep avoiding their continuous attacks. Meanwhile, Kirei is feeling the effects of the large insect in his stomach. He imagines having a conversation with a girl, telling her that once he has the Holy Grail from the preacher's hands, he can save her. To his dismay, the girl he murdered in the church appears and screams at the top of her lungs. Berserker persists in his mission to eliminate her, but Saber uses her ability to tire him out and waits for the right moment to strike. Saber sees the opportune situation and uses a car as a shield to reach him. Surprisingly, this beast can stop his attacks, so the fight will continue to be challenging. She suspects that he is a knight she knew in her past life, as she was known as the Queen of Britain, so she orders him to show his face. He reveals his identity and she recognizes him. Indeed, she knew him as she has memories with him when he was still Lancelot. Now he looks far from human. He attacks, but she refrains from defending herself out of pity. The battle on that place continues, and Gilgamesh conjures a weapon out of thin air. One attack is enough to defeat the entire army of his opponent. Ryder and Waver miraculously survive but fall victim to the enemy's powerful weapon. All soldiers drop like flies. Both opponents return to reality, and with a serious look, Ryder asks his companion if he wants to be his retainer, and he observes with tearful eyes. He agrees. When he dismounts from the horse, he asks him to tell others what will happen, and then Ryder decides to fight. He tries to dodge all possible projectiles but cannot handle them all, and some spears pierce his body. He still keeps running, but when he is about to make the final attack, it's chained, so the enemy seizes the opportunity and pierces him with his weapon. He has a peaceful death as he can hear the sound of the waves before disappearing. The enemy approaches Waver, who is now in shock. After threatening to kill him just to scare him, he moves away to disappear, and now the young man mourns the departure of his friend. Kiritsugu begins to fight against Kirei, one efficiently wielding a gun and the other brandishing enormous knives that grow larger and larger in his hands. He fires. Saber is still in shock while fighting against Lancelot, who uses his full potential. She wonders why he hates her so much. When our hero shoots, the attack is ineffective against his enemy's weapon. He stops time to dodge an almost deadly blow. Dozens of bullets he expends in seconds remain ineffective. He discovers that his enemy is defending with a man of his command seal. Kirei plans a strategy for the next strike. Swiftly approaching our hero, Kirei strikes him in the chest, sending him flying against the wall, causing great damage. Saber receives a very hard blow from her enemy. She assumes that the cause of her death could have been her fault. Then a body appears in a kind of ritual, fading away in the fire. The Holy Grail ascends. Our hero shoots his nemesis and doesn't release his finger from the trigger. He uses his power again and manages to shoot him in the finger, and then in the arm. Both inwardly begin to count the powers they have left to use. Kiritsugu is the first to seriously attack his enemy. The chalice fills with blood and floods the area. They begin to skillfully fight, and neither manages to land a blow. Both are very close to each other. Meanwhile, the Holy Grail fills the entire floor with blood. In another room, Kirei can't take any more and falls to the ground. Saber manages to stab Lancelot in the chest with her knife, but with regret on her face. She tells him that his cause is to destroy the Holy Grail, and he questions her for still believing in that cause. He falls lifeless to the floor. Kiritsugu finds himself in a familiar place. Irisviel appears before him and explains that they are inside the Holy Grail. She asks him to complete the task and take her out of the Holy Grail, but he doubts her. She asks him to wish for whatever he wants, and suddenly he awakens from that trance. The young man is in front of a television showing a boat with many passengers, including Kiritsugu. The enemy presents him with a riddle, but he is distracted by the gunshots heard at the window. All of a sudden, everyone on the boat is dead. He receives a call and leaves the hotel room because Kirei presents him with another similar riddle. He moves to another location where everyone is also dead. He points the gun at his father and fires a deadly shot. He is in a difficult position since he has to kill someone from his life, and the protagonist stabs Maya. He reunites with his family, and an apparent Irisviel tells him that was his wish from the Holy Grail. He promises her that everything will be fine, but then points the gun at her head and fires. She cries and asks why he did it, and he begins to strangle her. She asks him why he didn't save the Holy Grail, and he responds with 6 billion people. She curses him and dies. As he breaks her neck, he realizes it will be the last memory of her. He wakes up from the illusion and is aiming at Kirei. He kills him by shooting him in the head despite his desires to obtain the Holy Grail. Later, Saber is in a confrontation with her enemy, and he doesn't let her get close to the Holy Grail. When it seems like he's about to kill her, Kiritsugu appears to help. But this time, he forces her to do something she doesn't want, asking her to destroy the Holy Grail after activating all of his command seals. Despite her pleas, the young man keeps insisting on Saber to destroy the chalice. She unleashes tremendous power and instantly regrets what she's doing. The city glows as if it were a bomb. Our hero is shocked by what he sees above him. The chalice spills his blood and takes Gilgamesh with it. This lava-like liquid destroys Eviratihang. He continues hallucinating with his daughter as he sees the city in flames. He tries to help everyone, but no one is alive. Positive words from Irisviel are also heard. Kirei helps a little girl in a hostile environment. The young man crosses paths with all of his acquaintances, and the others call him Daddy. He falls without resistance into a place full of creatures. Gilgamesh stands naked before Kirei. Both notice different changes, and one of them comments that he doesn't feel alive. He suggests to Kotomine that he has won the Holy Grail and everything he sees is what he always desired. He feels ecstatic upon hearing the news and laughs joyously, but says that it's not enough. The young man could answer all the questions he had, but still needs to accomplish more on the journey. In the distance, he spots Kiritsugu, who walks severely injured. He watches him angrily because he is still trying to save people from the debris. When it seems all is lost, the voice of a child appears, and he sees how the protagonist saves him, grateful for his actions. Waver and the others are at the table having breakfast, watching the news. He confesses that he will go on vacation for a while, and both are excited about the news. Kirei is at a funeral and professes religious words in front of a grave. He congratulates her because she was a great help to him, and the girl named Rin listens attentively. He also tells her that she has inherited the magic of her family. She turns around and walks away. She helps Noah to transport himself, and then he mentions that he will leave for a while. He hands her a weapon inherited from her master, now belonging to her, and she quickly realizes that it was recently her deceased father's, breaking into tears. In another reality, we see Saber amidst a dying army. The queen mourns the death of everyone, including Lancelot, making her cry uncontrollably and without consolation. In her mind, she recalls the death of her ally and asks for forgiveness, although it doesn't help at all. The protagonist is still alive and suggests that after Ilia, he hasn't lost anyone else in his life. Despite that, he leads a peaceful life and after that infernal day, adopts the child he saved. 5 years later, his adoptive son Shiro and Kiritsugu are having a conversation. He confesses that he once tried to achieve his dreams and failed, but the boy responds that he can accomplish that mission for our hero as he has the determination to do so. A celestial light shines upon Saber. A few seconds later, he finds the peace he had been seeking for a long time as he won't have the burden of saving the world with his own hands. The end! Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new anime recaps.